Greetings, everybody. It is February 17th, 2022, the third decade of the 21st century, and we are not going to talk about socio-political issues. Instead, we're going to nerd out, get a little meta, and have a little fun talking about Amazon's Reacher, starring Alan Ritchson and Willa Fitzgerald and a few other actors whose names I can't remember, so that's why I didn't state their names. I'm going to do my absolute level best to give you my personal take and review on the subject without spoiling too much if you haven't seen it yet, if this video serves as some sort of motivation to go and see it. First and foremost, little disclaimer here. I enjoyed the first one with Tom Cruise. I do tend to enjoy the movies that Tom Cruise puts out. I think he's a fantastic actor. Is he somebody that I would probably enjoy as a person? I have no idea. I know he's into the whole Scientology thing, and that's the subject of unto itself. I understand that, he's been doing this for quite a while, so he may have a certain amount of pride, ego, and other characteristics that might make him difficult for someone like me to deal with. But all in all, I enjoy the product he puts out as an actor. I enjoyed Reacher, the movie. Now, in the movie, which the character Reacher is based on a series of books by Lee Child. In the movie, full disclosure, I have not read the book, so I don't know how far to being anywhere close to accurate or how far from being way off the script the movie is. But in the movie, Jack Reacher is a retired special investigator for the Army Criminal Investigative Division, and he is a retired major, so he's an officer, and he's like just wicked awesome at like Krav Maga, hand-to-hand combatives, and he is also an extremely gifted marksman. All of this is established in the first movie. In the follow-up sequel with Cobie Smulders, I don't know if they thought that in the first movie, Tom Cruise was overwhelmingly good at hand-to-hand and overwhelmingly good at marksman, and if they wanted to tone it down a bit. But in the second movie, Reacher doesn't dominate as much on either side of the spectrum between marksmanship or hand-to-hand combatives. And there was a little bit of a plot line there. Between both movies, I have no idea if they have anything remotely close to do with the books or if they were just, the books served as inspiration for this. Accordingly, with the books, Reacher is also described as being a large, imposing character, a hulking person, all right? In which case, did Tom Cruise fit that bill? Not necessarily, and for fans of the books, whether Tom Cruise didn't fit the description or the movies were nowhere near close to the books, I don't know. So Amazon apparently is making a concerted effort to stay closer to the books, in which case each season is supposed to be a singular book, which brings us to where we're at now. So you got Alan Ritchson, which according to his IMDb page is about 6'2". I don't know how accurate that is because he did look a lot taller than 6'2". In the show, he states that he's 6'5". I'm not really going to argue. He's a big dude. On the Michael Rosenbaum podcast, Inside of You, he said that he had bulked up to about 230 when he averages around 205. He looks like a pretty buff dude. So 205 pounds on 6'5" would look scrawny in my opinion. So maybe he really is 6'2", but semantics. I'm not going to argue too much over that. Alan, who has some fantastic natural genetics, was in fact in rare form. He was quite large, and for anybody who's interested, there's plenty of opportunity for him to take his shirt off, and there's plenty of shirtless scenes where you get to see Alan Ritchson in all his glory. He's a handsome man, I'm not going to deny it. That being said, I don't know how close it is to the book, but the overall show itself, I believe it was 8 episodes, was really good. When you compare and contrast to the movies, and equally and opposite, if somebody has read the books, please comment. Let me know, all right? provide me that feedback. My wife and I are considering buying the books and reading them. Um, in this series, without trying to give anything away, without spoiling anything, Alan Ritchson's Reacher is not 100% dominant at the hand-to-hand. He does get beat on a little bit. He does get his ass handed to him, which I think is pretty daggone realistic. I think even some of the most gifted hand-to-hand combative personnel are going to take some shots. Even when I've trained with hand-to-hand combatives, whether it was with weapons, with your hands and feet and your body, the one thing we were told over and over again is you have to be prepared to take hits. You have to be prepared to take cuts. It's whether or not you can overcome that and inflict the most violence on your enemy. So for that aspect, it's pretty realistic. So you may enjoy that aspect, or you might be a little turned off to the fact like, no, I want him 100% dominant. He dominates quite a bit. And I will say this, the one thing, and I told my wife this when we were watching it, for such a big guy, if his power matches his size, there's a few hits where anybody who's studied hand-to-hand combatives, martial arts, mixed martial arts, there's a few hits, there's a few blows that he throws where, realistically speaking, these people are done. Either you're overwhelming them with so much pain, or you're hitting them in that spot where you're going to knock them out. All right, without the benefit of padding and gloves, some of these shots that he's delivering, these people are done. All right, I don't know if there's any amount of adrenaline that can overcome that. So, for me, having that kind of a background and experience, I found that to be a little like, I don't know. If he's between 6'2" and 6'5", 230, and he's putting everything behind it, I mean, there's not too many average guys that are gonna, stand up to like Stipe and whatnot. They're gonna go down. But you feel free to interpret that how you will. I'm trying really hard not to spoil anything here. The story and the plot was pretty good. There's one storyline where they basically do flashbacks and they introduce the brother, and they kind of give you the impression the brother is equally tall, equally imposing, etc. And the way that his brother went out in the beginning, which we didn't know at the time, was kind of like, but then again, completely realistic when you stop and think about it objectively. That being said, I personally found it entertaining. There were a few things here and there, no big deal, nothing to deny the plot. I will say this, depending on your individual perspective and depending on your individual point of view, one of the things, for me at least, and I don't know if it affects my wife as much, but I cannot stand when content is overly woke. So lately I've been seeking out content, and I don't know how badly this affects my wife, but if it's such a gross representation of modern day socio-political content, I can't get into it. I don't care if it's right, left, I just can't. I really don't care for that. When I watch stories, I want to tune out. From that perspective, Reacher allows you to tune out. You don't get the sense of wokeness. You don't get the sense of ultra conservative. I think it's pretty well down the middle, and it's just storytelling. The one plot line that they do discuss is Finley, who I should really look up the actor's name. I apologize. The character of Finley is played by a retired Boston police officer who has moved to this fictitious town of Margrave to basically start all over. Without spoiling anything, Margrave is supposed to be a fictitious town somewhere outside of Atlanta, close enough to Alabama, which, depending on where you grew up, that's a southern state, that's a Confederate state, it's south of the Mason-Dixon. I'm originally from Chicago, so naturally when they play on certain things like racism and small southern town America and segregation and all of that stuff, it's an easy plot line for me to get behind. Now, if you're someone close to my age who's currently living in, say, Georgia or whatnot, I'd be very interested to hear your point of view and your perspective if this fictitious town of Margrave accurately represents the socio-dynamics concerning pigmentation, race, ethnicity, etc. Um, so it wasn't the domineering point. It was made, it was what it was. It worked for the story. It didn't dominate the story. It was just, here's the point. We made it. Let's carry on with the majority of the plot. And I thought that was very well done. Willa Fitzgerald, she was new to me in the show. Apparently she's done some other projects. She played a character who had a family legacy to the town, and she was also a woman, and she kind of had this weird dynamic where she didn't want to necessarily be babied out of chivalry, like, look, I'm a woman, let me do my thing. But at the same time, she kind of portrayed it from the standpoint, like, look, I understand what you're doing, you're being chivalrous, you're being a male, I know you're not being toxic or anything like that, it's just, I'm not a princess, I'm not a woman in distress, I could take care of myself. In my personal opinion, as somebody who's rather sensitive, I didn't get an overwhelming sensation of Me Too or wokeness, so that was also done tastefully, and that was also done rather neutral. I think it was totally believable, and I think it didn't try to send a different message, and it didn't try to take over the overarching theme of the plot. So if you're somebody like me and you're very concerned about these different issues that are currently infecting a lot of stuff today, you're not going to find it here. In my personal opinion, it's a rather neutral, story-driven, plot-driven series that doesn't excessively address any socio-political issues, other than stuff that's completely believable. People being greedy and therefore being crooked, people in positions of power being bought out, all the standard issue stuff, none of which I thought was, dripping with wokeness or socio-political stuff. So the whole point of that, as if I was rambling on for like 3 to 4 minutes, if you're trying to tune out and tune into a story and let a story be told visually for you, and you can tune out from the modern world and all of the nonsense and the jackassery that is taking place in the third decade of the 21st century, Reacher is an excellent choice. I thought it was rather neutral. I thought it was very plot-driven based on the stories told by Lee Child, and I sincerely look forward to follow-on seasons. According to the podcast Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum, Alan Ritchson said it was an extremely grueling filming cycle, so hopefully it's not as grueling for the future seasons, and I hope it gets picked up again. That being said, maybe you'll find some humor in this. Again, not trying to spoil anything. I don't know Willa Fitzgerald. I don't know her as a person. I don't know her as an actress. I'm not familiar with any of her other work, although my wife is. Alan Ritchson takes his shirt off a lot in this. Damn near once an episode. And I don't know what the intent was for that. I don't care. Am I a little jealous? I think any guy would be, because he's just built like a motherfucker. Alright? I mean, yeah, I'd probably let him sleep with my wife. She'd be like, she slept with him. Anyways, that's a joke, by the way. There's a scene where Willa Fitzgerald decides that she's had well, not Willa Fitzgerald, Roscoe is like, I've had enough of this cat and mouse. I'm going to go get me some. They're in a hotel. Reacher goes into the shower, and Roscoe's like, I'm going to get my fuck on. Alright, pardon my language. But, I mean, you could just tell, like, she's had enough. Like, it's time. I'm going to get me some of that. And the whole point that I'm trying to make is, my wife and I have this weird propensity where we can really get into the story, and we can start to identify with certain things, and we really start to get into the characters. And in this particular scene, Willa Fitzgerald playing Roscoe is topless. If she's full nude, whatever. But it was just one of those things where instead of like, she's naked, or the assumption is she's naked, but maybe she's covered up, or maybe. No, it's full on, there's their boobies. Because of how my wife and I were feeling towards the character of Roscoe and whatnot, I can't make this up. And if Willa Fitzgerald ever sees this, which I doubt she would, I hope she can respect what we're trying to say here. When it happened, it was kind of like, because we just, I can't explain it, but like both my wife and I had such a respect for Roscoe, where I was like, look, it's cool, girl. You go get you go get your fuck on. You go do what you got to do. But for some reason, it was just, I don't know if I can explain it, but it was like we weren't anticipating that. We weren't anticipating seeing her topless. And I'm not saying it was gratuitous. I'm not saying it didn't go with the story. I'm not saying it was inappropriate. But for some reason, both my wife and I had this sensation, this feeling, this opinion of the character. We were both like, still there. Almost like we were trying to like be discreet, like, Roscoe, we can see your boobs. And I don't know, it was just, it caused my wife and I to go, like we both had to comment on how we did not expect that. We were not expecting it. And I guess the whole point of that is we had such a respect and admiration for the character. We just, I don't know, out of respect, we were both kind of like, boobs. So, depending on your point of view, maybe you'll look forward to that. Maybe you'll play that scene over and over again. Willa Fitzgerald's very attractive. A little too young for me. She's a full-blown adult woman, but she's too young for me. And perhaps maybe I'll make a follow-on video that's just completely random and nonsensical. But we'll see how many people watch it and how many people actually can identify with it. So hey, as far as my wife's take and my take on it, I don't think you'll be disappointed. There's not a lot of socio-political stuff other than what's necessary to drive the plot. It's very plot-driven. I think it's very enjoyable, and I think it's 7 or 8 episodes of just good storytelling based on a book series by Lee Child. So if you've seen it, comment. Let me know. I'll be more than happy to nerd the fuck out over talking about Jack Reacher and any other content. Future forthcoming. I'm still working on some cosplay stuff. I'm in the middle of renovating an area of my house to turn it into a shop, so there'll be some cosplay stuff coming up. Additionally, when my wife and I can finish Buffy, we're on season 6 now. Once we finish Buffy, I'll start to do some commentary on Buffy, then move on to Angel, and then move on to Firefly, and then possibly Dollhouse. Whether it has anything to do with Joss Whedon or not, because I understand he's kind of like in a weird spot, I'll just provide some commentary on that and solicit some feedback. Until that time, you're awesome.